Thanks everyone for joining. Welcome everyone on the panel. This should be super exciting. So I am Abbruzzese, Principal Analyst with ABI Research. I've been covering AR, MR, VR for a few years now. The objective for this panel really is to get a look from those directly involved on what's going on both hardware and on software and platforms. We have a nice representation of both here. So we'll hear some of the differences in hardware right now. What are the reasonings behind those differences in hardware? What are the use cases happening? How are platforms enabling these use cases? And we'll also, towards the end, kind of shift things to more forward-looking topics. What do the roadmaps look like? How are things shifting right now, and what does the market look like because of that in the next 2 to 3 years? So that's what we're going to cover today. But why don't we start with Michael? Why don't you introduce what you guys do at Librestream?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really delighted to be here. My name is Michael Murphy. I'm Vice President of International Operations with Librestream. We're a Canadian company with a very strong international presence, headquartered out of the UK. And our fundamental business is provision of software to enable devices, whether they're smartphones or tablets, or indeed evolving technologies, such as we're seeing this week with Smartglasses, the ability for them to operate, collaborate, share information, and enable the type of use cases that we're going to be discussing this afternoon. That's our business. Thank you.
Great. So let's hear from some of the hardware guys. Valerie, what's going on at Epson?
So I'm the head of new market development at Epson Europe. So since 5 years, I'm essentially focusing on the development of Moverio smart glasses. We are essentially developing binocular see-through smart eyewear. And we have tried since 5 years to develop products that could fit the different requirements of the market. So trying to tackle the personal market, but as well the commercial for visitors experience or medical sector, as well as the industrial that have very strong requirements in terms of robustness and long-lasting batteries, for example, among others. So beyond that, we are trying as well, because we are not developing software, to partner with several different kind of companies so that all together we can provide ready-to-sell solutions to the market that could be implemented in a relatively small lead time.
Great. All right, Lance, VUZIX, you had a couple neat announcements earlier today. Why don't we?
We did. We announced our new application store, our app store for all of our devices this morning. I also made a comment this morning that last month we celebrated our 20th year in business, which is pretty shocking considering we've only done head-mounted displays for 20 years. If any of you can make it to Rochester, New York, our museum is something to behold. That these devices were on people's heads at one point in time is fairly amazing. But what we did is we learned a lot of good lessons. Some were easy, most of them were hard. There were failures that we learned from. All that kind of stuff has led us to where we are today, which is the M300 for enterprise use that we are selling now. And the platform, which you can see at our booth, is really what we're here to talk about today. Whether it's wearing them on glasses or a head mount or a safety helmet or ear protection or whatever it is. We'll get into those specifics a little bit later, I think, but we're very excited about that. And then also excited to share with you the little bit that I can about our future roadmap and some of the products that we think are going to leap the chasm into the consumer side of the business.
Awesome. Yeah, we will definitely get into all of that, but not before Kayvan introduces us to Optinvent.
So thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Optinvent has been around not quite as long as VUZIX, but long enough to know better. We've been in business for 10 years now, so we consider ourselves a pioneer in the smart glass segment. We make products based on a patented thin waveguide see-through technology, which we call ClearView, and the products are called the Aura products. So this is the Aura 2 smart glasses that is currently in production that we're selling to industry segments, whether that be remote maintenance, logistics, medical, et cetera, et cetera. We sell the device and we support customers that want to build specific applications or deploy the devices into their environments. And that's great. I mean, I think everybody is kind of going after the same market, but you know, we still haven't given up on the consumer vision that we have, and our vision is that consumers will not wear smart glasses anytime soon. I don't think any consumer will wear a device with tons of technology on their face, but they do wear devices with technology on their heads. So our roadmap, basically for consumer, is a device that disguises itself as a headphone in a form factor that consumers are familiar with, called the Aura X. And this will bring, we think, a new kind of mobile augmented reality experience to enable that for consumers.
Awesome. So a lot of great stuff. We have a nice variety, platform, hardware, different types of hardware. Let's dive into what's going on these devices. So we heard from each of you a little bit kind of what the activity looks like on your end, but let's dive deeper. So Lance, why don't you start us off? VUZIX M300 shipping very well. What are the use cases you're seeing for the most part there?
Use cases are very wide and varied. There's core use case, I think, for smart glasses today, probably for any of us, is what you would say, what people are calling field service, but it's really a video collaboration. See what I see, remote expert at a computer or experts at computers looking through the camera of the wearer's device. You can call it telemedicine if there's a doctor on one end. You can call it engineering support if there's an engineer on one end, but it's really just video collaboration. That's the #1 use case. But as we see, now we're moving into complex manufacturing, warehousing and logistics. Those areas are very big. The ROIs are known. The use cases are out there. People are now focusing on not should we, but how do we? And that's a big shift in that. And what we've learned, to be honest, is we tried to build a device that was focused on 80% of the known use cases. But what we've learned is within that 80%, we have to be able to empower 100% of their workforce, right? So if you're left eye dominant, we have to supply a product that caters to left eye dominant folks, or 22% of your workforce can't use the device. We've learned a lot working with the low vision and blind communities about spot vision, prescription lenses, things like that. We all know sometimes we have to wear safety helmets, sometimes we need an intrinsic device, and all those kinds of things have to come together for those use cases to get out of the conference room pilot and actually out into the field. And that's really where we're focused today.
Got it. So Michael, from a platform perspective, we heard about hardware. Is there anything different, anything notable that you're hearing on your end in terms of what customers want from you?
It's very consistent to what we're seeing in our industry. Certainly, see what I see, video collaboration has been around for a while. The first comment I would make on that, though, is we're beginning to see a substantial uptick in this business of video collaboration. But with that, we're also seeing, with the acceleration of this market, it's a maturing or a changing of the customers, and an expectation now that they want to see a greater proportion of their workers' day digitized. And that goes along with the comments just made now by Lance around CRM and ERM capability, and the integration of back office systems into not just video collaboration now, but also, as I say, digitizing more of that worker's day. One aspect of that is workflow, and we're seeing a huge interest now in integrating workflow capability alongside the ability to collaborate with experts remotely.
Awesome. So on that point, I want to talk a little bit about form factor and how these things can dictate how a platform has to integrate a device, or how the hardware provider is targeting certain use cases. So we have 2 monocular devices present from Optinvent and VUZIX, and 1 binocular device for Epson. So Valerie, why don't you talk through the decision-making for Moverio? Why was it deemed valuable to be binocular?
So, I mean, basically, it depends on the number of information you want to overlay. Okay, it might be extremely simple information, but what you want to display, if you want very short messaging, very kind of easy to consume information, you might rather go for monocular. Then if you have we really want to have a lot of information being displayed, a lot of graphics, and everything that could be even very small to look at, you might go for a binocular. But fundamentally, on our side, the kind of use case we have is rather the same kind of, remote assistance kind of use cases. But as well, we have a large market in the mid-range with our latest release, BT350, that will be around visitors' experience, museum, sightseeing, subtitling for operas and theaters. That is a very important market. We have a lot of medical application, not surgery and what we can see being probably quite a long time, but rather a very simple application replacing external display where people may have to turn their head like doctors or dentists. Then by having the glasses and seeing things right in front of their eyes, they keep focused on the patient. And we have as well, and it's where consumers sometimes may pop up out of the blue, we have a very large base of usage for our BT300 with drone pilots. And the fact is that I think the consumer market, I understand about the form factor, but I think the value of the application is really important as well. So this case, the drone pilot, he wants to look at the drone and see the video feed at the same time. The see-through glasses enable that. The price doesn't matter so much, and it becomes our major market out of the blue. So I think overall, the use cases that we are really deploying and implementing today have all in common that they are simple, and they are easy to implement, they are relatively affordable, and the users that are quite forgotten in the whole process, they understand what they get. They feel it helps them. So the remote assistance is a very, very interesting one from this perspective for all of us, I guess, but just that a company that gets someone that will remotely do a job and will achieve it at all times, because he got this kind of remote assistance, you can do the math very quickly. You understand what you get in terms of ROI. And then the user can just think, wow, thanks to the glass, I will solve the problem at all times. So it's a little bit of everything that makes that those solutions are deployed today and they are used. But if I have a message as of today, make it simple. The simplest applications can be rolled out today and not in 5 years from now, and they still have a lot of potential ROI and can help the businesses today.
So Kayvan, that falls in line with what you're seeing at Optinvent?
Yeah, it's pretty much in line. The only thing, that I'd like to add is that, absolutely agree with most of what Valerie is saying. Today we're not talking about the AR dream, right, that everybody has. I don't think any of the use cases here we're talking about, full-on hardcore AR. We're talking about, a second screen. We're talking about notifications. We're talking about see what I see, when we're talking about these remote maintenance type applications. Unfortunately, there's been a little bit too much hype. We were talking about this just backstage, with great concept videos that we're running here about, people manipulating objects and, Minority Report kind of things. That's not really what's going on today, and I don't think it's what's going to be going on anytime in the very near future. So, let's concentrate on, down-to-earth use cases, absolutely. In terms of consumer, I think, yes, there are some kind of niche applications in the consumer field for smart glasses as a form factor. But, I think the only way that we think that this industry can succeed is to have a large, let's say, a consumer application that could address a larger audience, and whereby we can sneak up on the consumer with all this great augmented reality stuff that we have, in our guts and in our DNA that hasn't really been able to express itself due to the low adoption rate of the devices. So again, I think we all as an industry need to work on that. We think we're taking a baby step in that direction with this device, which we think is much more mainstream. Sure, there's sports applications, there's drone applications, but we'd like to see a more mainstream application for these devices.
Got it. I definitely want to dive into this consumer play soon. but Michael, I want to hear from you first. We heard a lot about adding value, keeping it simple can be adding value. From a platform perspective, how can you add value?
We completely subscribe to the notion of keeping it simple and adding value, of course. We strive to make our application technology extremely simple to use. It's a ubiquitous platform that will work across any platform and any device. In terms of adding value, the use cases where we're seeing our technology applied, whether it's with glasses or other platforms, we're seeing time savings, depending on the use case and the industry, anywhere in the region of 10 to 15%, up to 90% in terms of operational savings made, which are huge. The 90% savings, we're seeing these in the oil and gas industry, where we're able to cut down the transition time from an expert to fly from onshore in Aberdeen to offshore in the North Sea, and solving those problems very, very quickly. And that's enabled through the technology, but it's also enabled through the simplicity of the software that we're developing, at least.
Got it. Makes total sense. So keeping with this idea of simplicity, looking at the market as a whole, we're in a room full of people that are relatively knowledgeable about this market, but expanding that horizon, you start to bring in enterprises that maybe aren't familiar with augmented reality. You start to get into consumer. But before we talk about consumer, Valerie, let's start with you. How would you approach an enterprise that you see as a potential major ROI player in terms of implementing your device? How do you go about convincing them that it's worthwhile?
I think it's important to understand what they want to do with it. What is the kind of use case they want to address. If it's just about knowing, what the glass can do, it's a very bad start. It's really understanding what kind of problem you have and what do you want to solve. Sometimes it's just you go to an industry and you think they have manufacturing deep issues, and you're thinking, I'm going to try to propose something about training or assistance on the manufacturing line, and you end up with a customer that wants to do factory tour. So that's a completely different. It might be the same contact. So really understanding what they want to do is very important, so that you can provide the right solution, and then you can recommend the right partner. Because having the hardware and the software is just the start of everything. Then you have to just understand, do you have the proper infrastructure? Do you have the Wi-Fi, the server, the cloud access at any time? If everything, kind of really smooth in your company and already set up so that it can flow afterwards. So I think that there are a lot of things to just analyze at the start to really make sure that we provide the best solution. And again, it has to be simple. It has to be affordable, because it can be very overwhelming to just think, I have to set up that in my 5 manufacturing area or in my 10 factories all across the world. The most important is not the POC. The POC stage should be limited. What is important is to deploy. And this deployment is going to make a huge difference. It doesn't have to be 10 factories and 10,000 people, but the 20 units, it's a learning curve. But starting now with a small deployment will make everybody learn and progress, and then we can just, think about the second step. And the difficulties we probably have is that this POC is almost a nightmare. We have POCs all over the place, and we are happy to support, but the real challenge is to go beyond. And for our customers as well, this is really where they will get valuable feedback to evaluate the ROI and how profitable this kind of installation can be in their company.
I have a question, Valerie. In that process of POC and getting the customer acceptance to move forward, where would you see the greatest roadblock is in that success? Is it on the IT security side of things, or is it somewhere else? Where would you see the adoption is the hurdle to overcome in an organization to move forward with the technology?
I don't think there is any hurdle as far as it's taken from the early stage. The big difficulty we have is that we are talking to R&D departments. There are people that are extremely knowledgeable, that are extremely good at understanding the use case. We are working in a kind of isolated department for 2 years, and then when we come to light inside their companies, then we confront all the organization you are talking about. IT has never been involved. After 2 years, they have never been, kind of questioned about what's going to be the actual setup, what are the barriers, the security, the OS problem, whatever. It should be dealt with like, I don't know, buying any kind of, when you are buying any kind of material, you involve a lot of people in your company. It's too much isolated. It's too much at the kind of innovation, ideological stage. We have to treat any AR, VR project as a normal, sorry, I'm from Epson, printer installation. You would not think about not involving the entire purchasing, IT, whatever organization when you make a big installation of printers. So it has to be dealt in the same way. And then when you go for deployment, it flows.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Lance, so what do you have to add to that? Is there anything different?
I've got 30 seconds that's important here. So just real quick, yeah, ready? I'll kill the last 3. How are you? No, if you've been listening today, what's been going on? The industry is coming to this consensus. So Ubimax announced Frontline today. What is that? It empowers their clients to build their own workflows, simply without any programming. You just heard it from Upskill a couple of weeks ago. Aether Labs has the same kind of process. Spoiler alert, you may be hearing other stuff coming from VUZIX in the same regard. What we're doing is you have to empower the people who actually know the workflows. I'm not an expert in complex manufacturing. I'm providing you a tool. These folks have to be able to use that in their pilot process, bring in the actual device wearers, the key stakeholders, the management, the lower level who's actually on the front lines, and empower them to change their workflows, to add a step, to remove a step, to be empowered and try different things and fail. Failure is fine. Fail fast, move on, find where you got to go, and then make the investment in the back-end data. And the back-end data tends to be the hurdle that we see the most. Great ideas, siloed data, unavailable, security issues getting to it, and again, that has to be part of the plan. But what we're finding is when these companies are empowered to do their workflows and they see the value down to every step, then they can go higher within the organization and get the power to change and get access to the data, get through the IT issues, and move to faster deployment. So we're starting to see it all over the industry coming to a head, and it's pretty exciting.
Absolutely, definitely exciting. So now I want to dive into the future, where we've been talking about, still relatively nascent, but better understood enterprise side of things. You're dealing with POCs that can be difficult, but you're also dealing with a company that knows they want ROI, they know how they want to implement. It's just a matter of getting it there. When looking forward, you're going to start to see that to expand and change. The consumer market's kind of the obvious discussion topic there. So Kayvan, I want to hear from you. What is Optinvent doing? I see, you already started on that consumer path, but considering that it's completely new, it's completely novel, consumers may not even know what they want. How do you break into that market?
I think we can we can all learn from past mistakes, right? That we're all guilty of as people who have been around in this industry for a while. Again, I don't want to bash Google Glass, but that was probably one of the best examples of what not to do. Consumers were not ready for a device that looks so bizarre. They didn't know what to do with it. A lot of people say, yeah, the applications weren't there. There was no killer app. Well, ask the average consumer. Grab a guy off the street. What do you do with this? What do you do with a Google Glass? He doesn't know. So we have to get him into a comfort zone where he has familiarity with something that we're trying to present. Again, I go back to the headphones. Everybody knows what headphones do, right? You listen to music with headphones. That's great. So we're already on a path to getting them, in a different space. It's not a geeky smart glass to make you more efficient, to see the weather, to do bizarre hand gestures and to talk to yourself. It's an entertainment device. Now I'm listening to music, but wait a second, this thing kind of strange, has a display. Oh, wait, so now I can watch music videos, and they get that. We don't have to explain that to them. We're not going to explain to them is, yeah, but you can do all this other stuff because there's a full-blown Android computer in here, and you can use it, you know, to do augmented reality. Whoa, 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 what's that? So we have to, again, things are going to take time. We're trying to change consumer habits that are, you know, entrenched. The smartphone did that, you know, 10 years ago, but it's taken, you know, a long time for consumers to come to grips with the fact that now they all need a device that they can hold in their hands and go and surf the internet. We need to, again, learn from those trends, learn from our past mistakes, and to not, you know, drown them in this whole augmented reality dream that, again, we all have, that they're all going to be walking around getting augmentations, information, and facial recognition and what have you. A lot of that stuff scares them. If we brand it or package it differently, I think it's going to go a long way. Again, I said it's a baby step. I think it's a significant baby step. We think it's the first consumer device that actually has this capability that consumers can actually adopt and wear and not be ashamed of and not be called glass holes. And then we can sneak up on them with all the other, you know, computer vision and all that other great stuff that we want, you know, that we have within this industry, all the great software talent, all the great application talent, all the use cases that, you know, we've all envisioned, that we've all seen concept videos of, but that we can't do in one foul swoop. We have to do it in steps. That's our vision.
Got it. So Lance, is VUZIX view on this different? How are you taking that first step?
It's funny. I think we're running to the exact same point in opposite directions, which is a great thing.
That's a great thing. Diversity.
I'll see you at the other end, right? But what we're doing is we believe that the paradigm for smart glasses in enterprise and consumer is exactly the same. Heads up and hands free. If that doesn't matter, use your cell phone. You already have one, right? Heads up and hands free in business is I've got a wrench in one hand, a greasy in the other hand, and I'm under an engine. It's really nice to have all of my information right there on my face. I'm a tourist walking down the streets in Munich, and instead of holding my phone up to see the GPS and see where I'm going and look like this, to wear a pair of glasses where that arrow is just in the road as if it's right in front of me, that's heads up and hands-free. That's game changer. We were talking in the back about karaoke. Heads up, hands-free karaoke with the information right on your glasses. That's a home run, and it's simple. People put it on, they use it, and they're ready to go. So for us, it has to be the same paradigm, but again, fashion, 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 fashion. The form factor has to be right. It has to be comfortable. I think we'll start with smart glasses, which we're coming out with the Blade 3000, which I didn't bring up with me. We're kind of bringing it back in to bring it back out at CES this year. But it absolutely looks like a pair of sunglasses, fairly standard sunglasses. I think as the market starts to digest these and figure out how they want to use them, how much is too much, what is a good field of view, how much is too big, how much is too small, then fashion will come to our tech. And fashion will change to evolve with the technology to enable the technology, right? We may be walking down the street in a pair of Gucci ski goggles because that's the best experience, and they made it fashionable, right? So there's a lot to learn. There's some baby steps we got to get out there. We need to cross that chasm and get some early adopters. Again, fashionable for us. Fashionable smart glasses mean a step back in functionality in order to fit that form factor. Right, because you've got to fit everything into that small space. So we're really excited about this. But again, and some of the reasons that we brought out our App Store today is to build that simple application ecosystem. GPS, subtitles, very simple things that you can use on the glass that other people can use. And think about BYOD, bring your own device. That's where we want to head with these. So you're wearing your glasses, you're a barista at Starbucks, you're getting your work instructions from the company. You leave work, you get on your bicycle, you have the GPS take you to your restaurant, and then while you're at the restaurant, you hit your Snapchat application and take a picture and send me what you're eating for dinner, right? I mean, that's what we see happening, and we hope will happen in the near future.
So bring your own device is an interesting point. Michael, from a platform side of things, that's an interesting topic. How does that factor in?
So very interesting comments, and from a platform perspective, our focus has been very much on industrial enterprise, so business to business. So we we have a very interesting roadmap to support that. And perhaps that roadmap one day would be able to support karaoke through an encrypted data channel, which we support. But on a serious note, we're striving to support businesses that need to move beyond video collaboration, see what I see, and integrate greater functionality. I alluded earlier to aspects of CRM, so forth, and workflow. These are the type of capabilities that we're beginning to integrate into our product, as well as being able to support the evolution of all of these hardware platforms that we're seeing today, including the smartphones. I think that's the perspective that I would give. On the consumer side, we are traditionally a business-to-business organization. That being said, we are beginning to get some consumer pull, although it is on the business-to-consumer side.
Got it. So Valerie, I want to hear from you. Epson's role and view, enterprise and consumer, you can play in both. You mentioned drone piloting. Is there anything on your roadmap or something you want to see from Epson that can maybe bridge that gap between enterprise and consumer, putting these glasses on the head of a user and maybe they could use it for their work or as a consumer?
I think the strategy will be slightly different. It's not bridging the gap, it's developing more products for more different usages. So there are different directions depending on the products. Smaller, lighter, more fancy is obviously the direction that the consumer area will take. But I'm still very convinced that the usage and what they're going to think they can get from the product that exactly they can't get from a smartphone is going to make a big difference. And that will be the challenge, really, to find this kind of usage. Like the drone, no other kind of device can achieve what we are providing today from drone pilots. And it would be a lie to say that in our roadmap we would have told that the drone pilot would be our #1 market today. The usage as well are coming with the availability of the product, and as we have more products and more original kind of usage, it will come up as well. But I would like rather that maybe we focus on the short term, and the short term, like any IT kind of products in history, come from the enterprise world. And I think it's very important that we finalize this lot of success in the enterprise world, because we might not be here in 5 years to just secure the consumer world anymore. We have a big challenge in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years to make this work, really, and we all have a responsibility. Us to do better products, our developers to make improved and more accessible kind of applications. But again, we see too much stuff on the YouTube that makes everything extremely fancy, wonderful, beautiful. It's not probably what the people need right now. It might happen, but if we constantly wait for that, or thinks that our clients as well will invest all the sufficient amount of money to develop this kind of stuff in a very usable way, we might all have disappeared. I mean, we are relatively big companies, but most of our partners that are the core of our solutions, most of them are startups. They need to sell now. They need to expand to get a lot of revenue, to get better business, and to do this kind of fantastic things for the future. So we all have, I think, a responsibility to just make that this AR market fit the fantastic number that ABI Research is showing in their market research data, because we are all convinced it's going to work. We are all convinced it's going to be a brilliant market, but it's our responsibility today to make it work. So we all have to invest, clients, solutions partner, vendors, to make it happen before 2030.
Absolutely. So we heard from hardware, we heard from a platform. Speak to everyone on the floor. There's so many awesome companies on the floor here. See what they're doing. It's going to factor into the market as a whole. There's a lot of really exciting innovation. We heard some here. There's a lot out there as well. It's incredibly quick moving, but incredibly exciting as well. I want to thank our panel. You guys did a great job. It's super interesting to hear from you from, first party, what's going on. And thank you all for joining us. I hope you learned something, and I hope you're excited as we are. Thanks.